James Harden makes his latest debut. He definitely got the record for trade requests and debuts. James Harden makes his latest debut as a member of the LA Clippers. He's going to start alongside Russell Westbrook. And you know you had a lot of trade demands in your career when you keep coming back to the same dudes. Like James Harden has run through every co-star, every superstar in the league. This is like his third time playing Russell Westbrook. Like they've already done this already.
They've done this dance before.
Yeah, all right. So, but he's starting alongside Russ, Paul George, and Kawhi. But what's most interesting to me is that Westbrook, for now, is considered the point guard, and not the guy who led the league in assists per game last year. So with Harden, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like we've made it only about the playoffs, and just as a culture, you know, the way we discuss the NBA, it's all about the playoffs and what you do in the postseason. We don't care about the regular season. But I said a long time ago that I thought that maybe James Harden was just made to entertain us from November to April. You know, like maybe that's his calling. It's just to entertain us. Back when he was in Houston and, you know, putting up historic offensive numbers. So I think about Maya Angelou, and I think about when people show you who they are, believe them. And so I look at James Harden and I say, okay, like everything else with James Harden, this is going to end badly, right? Like you're putting him alongside Westbrook, Kawhi, Paul George, all of whom in one way, shape, or form have unreliability as a part of their characteristics, whether it's availability, whether it's offensive efficiency, or whether it's showing up in big moments. All of them have questions about their reliability, if they even stay on the court together, right? They're all, I believe, free agents after this year. It seems as combustible a chemistry experiment as I can imagine. And yet, there's a part of me that's like, could this work? Could these guys actually, like, could Ty Lue get them to sacrifice? Could James Harden be like, yo, this is my last shot at getting paid? Could they actually figure out a way to make this work? Again, provided they stay on the court together.
Well, I think there's a better chance of this working than in Philadelphia, which I didn't think would work from the moment that they got together. he and Joel Embiid. Here's the thing. I feel like they have the same fatal flaw. You can't depend on them. Yeah. You can't depend on them in the last 5 minutes of a game. With James, here's the one thing I will say about James. And this won't sound like a defense of him. But to rewind, in Brooklyn, he wanted to get out when Kyrie Irving started losing his mind. That sounds like a wise man, okay? Right?
Right.
Sounds like a wise man.
You can't blame him for that. You can't blame him for
right.
it. Yeah.
All right.
I see where this is going.
And leaving Philly, you take a pay cut.
Yeah.
It appears that it was a wink, wink, nod, nod sort of thing that was not fulfilled on. Breach of trust leads to get me out of here. So now you're either way, you're on your last stop. The macro lead,
and Houston had run its course.
Right. Micro leads to macro. People don't care about the details. All we care about is where are you now? So he's at his last stop, theoretically. James Harden is still a pretty damn good basketball player. Like, you may not be able to depend on him as being your second best player, but if he's your third best player, he might be their
fourth. He may be their third. He may be their fourth on some nights. No, on some nights. Westbrook has his moments.
As a general sense, yeah.
Okay. No, general sense, he's third in his pecking order, but he might be fourth on some nights. And not to cut you off, it felt like in Brooklyn, that's what he was counting on. Was like, I could be second or third here. It ain't all on me the way it was in Houston. In Philly, he's not good enough to be second on a championship team alongside a guy, to your point, that has his own flaws. But again, if they're all healthy and he's the third banana, even fourth, that's not a bad spot for him. That's part of the reason why I'm optimistic.
And the one thing you know about him, he's like Pac-Man. He's going to eat up games. He's going to eat up minutes. Like, you know that he's going to show up and play, like you said, from now until April. Who knows what happens in May and June, but all you need him there for is to get you to the playoffs while those guys load manage or deal with injuries or whatever it is. And if he's your third best player in the playoffs, that means he's Chris Bosh. That means he's Austin Reeves. That means he's Michael Porter Jr., which means you never think of those guys as guys who lose you games, right? You don't think of Michael Porter Jr. for the Nuggets. If he had a 2 for 16 game, you would think about it, but you ain't pointing the finger directly. But if Michael Porter Jr. scores you 40 in the playoff game, you're winning the series. If James Harden as his third best player scores 40 once, you're winning the series. If he scores 40 twice, man, you are cooking with something special. Because that
conversely,
means
if he scores 40 twice and then has stinkers the rest of the way, you're losing that series as Philadelphia.
But here's the thing. If he has 2 stinkers in the playoff series as your third best player, that just means he's your third best player. You know what I mean? That doesn't guarantee that you lose a series. But if he gives you some transcending games, baby, you got something. And if you don't have Paul and you don't have Kawhi, you're cooked anyway, no matter what he does. So I think it's a low risk, high reward possibility for them when all they have is, what do the Clippers have? Disappointment.
Nothing to lose. I'll tell you what they don't have, something to lose at this point. It was the perfect spot for him. It was the only spot for him. It's the perfect spot for him. I don't want to keep falling for the banana in the tailpipe because it always ends badly with him, whether it's a partnership with an individual player or an organization, and he's been the common denominator.
This is the last one. I mean, this is the last one.
But it does feel like
he ain't
Antonio
Brown. He ain't, you know what I'm saying? He ain't Antonio Brown. You know what I mean?
Right. No,
the track record ain't great, but he ain't that.
No, he's not. He's not problematic, I would say. He can be toxic in his own way, but he's not problematic.
We've all been toxic.
I'd be interested. I've spent enough time beating up on him till at this point I'm like, I want to see it work. I really do. I want to see it work for James because I've had enough of talking about James Harden in that context of what do you want out of this basketball life? What are you searching for? What are you trying to accomplish? What's important to you? Like, I'm tired of talking about him from a trade request perspective. You know, I would much rather see him actually, do something in the postseason. And not just in the NBA Cup, to bring the conversation full circle. I hope he ain't go to the Clippers to win the NBA Cup. Hey man, I appreciate you.
I wouldn't mind spending the finals in LA. I wouldn't mind spending the finals in LA. I don't think I'll be there, but
not Vegas. Not Vegas. Hey, thanks so much for kicking it with your main man, Michael Smith. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, but also subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Rate it, review it, tell your friends about it. Oh, and be sure to follow me on social media.